All right, we are back with the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, our third Tuesday special as we get ready to, in about an hour or so, to react to the college football rankings, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. Obviously, the news of the week leading into the Florida game was the injury to Jordan Travis that will cost him the rest of his college football playing career. It was obviously a gruesome injury. I'm sure everyone that is watching Seminole Sidelines saw it. Feel awful for Jordan. I had a chance to write about it in Takeaway Tuesday. I think you don't ever the suddenness of the way it happened shocked everybody. The optics of the way it happened shocked everybody. It was I watched the play over and over again, just hard to watch. Hard to watch because of what that kid meant to the program. Hard to watch because of how that kid plays. A lot of reasons it was not fun to see, and we wish Jordan a speedy recovery. But Curt, I'll start with you. You were in the press box when it happened. What was your reaction? What are your thoughts now as we are now 4 days removed about from the injury? We're 3 full days removed from the injury. Jordan, as far as we know, is still in the hospital. We don't know the specifics. We do know that the ankle was dislocated, and just visually it looked like it could be worse than that. But anyway, just your thoughts on Jordan Travis, the injury, and what he's meant to this program over the last 4 years.
Man, it was just sad. And frankly, there have been moments at the last few days. I don't think any of us slept that well Saturday night. And you just think back and kind of you're reminded of it when you think about it in your head, like being out at practice today, and you're just kind of sad all over again. I mean, we are supposed to stay unbiased. And I think we do a good job in our coverage of staying unbiased. But when you cover these people, not even as players, but to get to know them. And when someone has as special a journey as Jordan, it just sucks to see it end that way. I mean, that's the best way to say it. It just sucks. Whatever type of season Florida State was having. I mean, obviously the implications for an 11-0 Florida State team are even bigger. But even if Florida State was 7-3 or 7-4, it would just suck for Jordan to go out that way. I mean, frankly, as about as weird an atmosphere in Doak in the aftermath as I've ever. I mean, just eerily silent. I mean, the press box, we kind of didn't know how to handle. I'll admit I had kind of looked away to the next play, and it kind of I had taken my eyes off, thinking that he had just gone down and not having the close up view of what happened and seeing Jordan react like that. So it's still something that I'm processing. I imagine other guys could speak to that too. 72 hours later here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, Jerry, I don't think I've ever seen as much symmetry as to an individual's player's development within inside a program and the development of a program that coincided along with his individual development. Jordan Travis, outside of Mike Norvell, is probably the player most responsible for FSU's ascension back to the top of the college football world. Obviously, a lot of players play a huge part of that. He doesn't do anything by himself, but there's some symmetry between where this program has gone, where this team has gone as a program under Mike Norvell, and where Jordan Travis went as an individual player. As he got better, the program got better in every asset, in every possible way. And really, this team kind of followed his lead the last 3 or 4 years. I think we were one of the first sites to consider, that called him a warrior when he was a younger player. It's what we took away from the style of play, even when he was still in the middle of his development. But just talk a little bit about your thoughts on the injury, your thoughts on what he's meant to this program, and your takeaways from everything that's happened since.
Yeah, I think, the way you wrote it, the symmetry between he and the program's development is a good it's a good reference. And it's not just him as a player, and he is a warrior, but it was the kind of person he is, he's the kind of the role model of what Mike is trying to recruit here. And if you noticed, we all noticed that we wrote a lot about it. There were 4 or 5 guys who didn't go to the NFL because Jordan didn't go. And they came back for him. And, the fans who see him play and maybe have met him, gotten an autograph, the thing that's, hard to really convey is how genuine a person he is. Mike keeps saying it, we keep writing it, but if you haven't met him and you haven't seen him over a span of time, it may be hard for you to imagine that he is that real. Thing that impressed me, and I've never seen a quarterback like this, maybe you guys have, but I never have, is he was truly insecure. He was a kid that when he first got here and he was struggling, had it not been for a conversation with Mike Norvell, he probably either moves to a different position or transfers, if he could have.
I think he might have quit football.
Or quit football. I mean, the guy is real. I mean, he has the same insecurities that we all do. And I think that's why we're able to relate with him on a different level. And I think that's why the players were able to relate with him on a different level.
Mark, obviously, one of the things that stood out to me was he was a kid that he gave everything on every play. And you don't see that. And you don't see that in the NFL anymore. You don't see it in college football anymore. I'm watching the Florida-Missouri game before we started this and doing some evaluations on Florida. And you see kids loaf. It's embarrassing. Jordan Travis, and the play that he got hurt on signifies it did not matter who the opponent was. He was trying to get every inch he could on that play. And that's one of the things that we loved about watching him play. He had extreme athletic ability. He could throw last 2 years he's been awesome as a passer. Always had this dynamic ability to make plays with his feet and with the ball in his hand. And those are all great traits. I compared him to Darren Holloman, Charlie Ward, and Kes McCorvey, and Amp Lee, and Peter Warwick, and Warwick Dunn, and so many others that have played at Florida State where he could just make people look silly. But the thing that I will miss about not getting the chance to see Jordan Travis play the next 2, 3, 4 ball games is the fact that he did play like that. He played like a linebacker, even though he was in a 5'10", 190-pound frame or whatever. Maybe he's 6 foot. I don't know. But I will miss the warrior-like mentality he played with, the way he played, like every play could be his last. You played for Florida State. You played with a guy, although totally different athlete that had no Danny McManus threw caution to the wind, right? He's one of the toughest players I've ever seen. Just talk a little bit about your thoughts on Jordan, your thoughts on the injury, your thoughts on what he's meant to this program.
Yeah, I hear warrior being thrown around a lot. I think as a coach, you look at a guy like that and you say he's the ultimate competitor. Right. He is the ultimate competitor. He in that I think embodies his attitude as a player, but like everybody keeps talking about, and you just see the kind of person he is. And look, knowing his story, knowing where he came from, where he was when he first got here in terms of as a quarterback. And I mean, when it first dawned on me, he was that kind of player. I was at the Boston College game when he single-handedly won the Boston College game. And he was not equipped at that time to be a quarterback to do that. But he just willed that win with his athleticism and his desire and his competitiveness. And that's, to me, I was struck by him. And then the next year when we start struggling, we have Alex Honeybrook and Mackenzie Milton, and we're trying to figure it out. I even said it on this show. I said, for me, Jordan Travis is a leader. He's a guy that if you put him in that spot and tailor the offense to him, I think you'll win more games than you lose. He's that kind of guy. And then for us to go through that year, and then the next year he comes out against LSU and throws the ball all over the park, and we beat LSU down in New Orleans, and we're like, wow, right? And as he grew, and you said it, the symmetry, Pat, it makes so much sense. But as he grew, so did the program. And that's his force of will that is embedded into this program. Everything that Mike needed to get done to change the culture in this program was embodied in Jordan Travis. And through his leadership and his will, walking alongside Mike Norvell, absolutely willed this program back to where we are now. And for that, as a ex-player, coach, fan, I'm so appreciative of that. And so, I mean, look, when you look at the pantheon of great Florida State players that are also great people, right? We think I was thinking to myself, who, is he now my favorite quarterback? Charlie Ward. You think of Charlie Ward, Warwick Dunn, obviously Coach Bowden, right? Derek Brooks. You think of guys like that, and Jordan Travis belongs right with those guys in my eyes, and maybe even more in that he was not a superstar guy. He made himself into that during his time here, right? And so we grew, he grew, the team grew, the culture was built, and it was all for him. And so, I think everybody deep inside kind of felt that. So when it happened, it was the suddenness of it, number one, right, against North Alabama of all teams on senior night, with all the emotion that was going on senior night and the situation we found us in during the course of the game. And for it to happen like that, I told Jerry when I saw him after, I said, my first thought was, well, we're no longer, that's the end of the Jordan Travis era. Now we see where this program really is. Is that culture sustainable? Is it all of that? Because we don't have that force of will on the field now, and that competitiveness on the field now. We'll see. But as far as Jordan goes, I hate it for him. And I mean, we all just get so emotional when we think about what he personally was robbed at. I mean, he was getting ready to earn the fruits of his work and his labor. It was coming to a crescendo, right? Going down to Gainesville, playoff, championship game, playoff, he was getting ready to reap in all the benefit of all that work he's put in these 3 years, and it was just taken away from him like that. And for me, that's where I hurt for him, But then what do you get? You get the story of Mike Norvell going down there and him telling, I'm good, coach. Tell everybody I'm good. And deflecting all the angst and all that. He didn't feel sorry for himself in that moment. All he could think about was his team. And that, to me, right there, just embodies who Jordan Travis is. And, that's going to be a big hole to fill. And maybe in the short term, we can hold on to that. And it could be an inspiration for this team to galvanize around. And we all hope and pray that that's exactly what happens. It appears that is what is happening, from the little bit I can see and what I see on social media and what I hear Mike say and the coaches say, So, yeah, I mean, it is definitely a blow. But you know what? We got to, move forward. The show goes on, the show goes on, as they say, and there's work to be done. And it's going to be really interesting to see. But I think, now is a rallying point that, the leader goes down. How do we respond? And if this team is built to respond, and we've seen it a ton, I'm encouraged.
Well, Mark, the old parable about whether you look at it as Johnny Appleseed or the wheat. While Jordan was here, we attracted a lot of kids who related to him and to the culture that Mike is trying to build. So hopefully some of the kids he attracted here are like kinds and will sustain that in years to come.
Yep. And listen, we got a comment from Jim. And Jim, we do appreciate you watching the show, and hopefully you will continue. But we did feel like it was appropriate to address Jordan's injury in this forum. We have not had a chance to do that. And if you watch the show, and if you see the byline on top of the show, you do know that we are moving on. But Jordan Travis is a instrumental player in Florida State's turnaround, and you certainly have to give him that due respect. And so it was important that we address this. And the fact that he is still leading this team from his hospital bed and giving this team moral support and supporting Jordan Travis, Tate Rodemaker and Brock Glenn and the rest of this team says a lot about who he is. And so I don't think that can be discounted. And we felt like it was appropriate to start the show this way. And we have no qualms about that. We have no regrets about that. We want to talk about Jordan Travis, and so we did. And listen, I do think what he's done is remarkable. As you mentioned, there's none of it's been about Jordan since he's been in the hospital. If nothing speaks to that, is like all his teammates that have been in that hospital room as the pictures starting to come out. But Mark, I'll start with you. There is a time that you have to move on, and I addressed this in Takeaway Tuesday. It's a next man up mentality. Kids are resilient, though, Mark. I know every kid and every coach in that locker room took this injury hard. And Mike even alluded to the fact that it was hard to process on Sunday, that the effects of this were real. But you and I have been a part of staffs where a kid's been hurt. I believe Anthony Wright got hurt at South Carolina when we were there. I know that
Arturo
we lost.
Freeman.
We lost. Yeah, I remember that. That was a bad one. We lost Matt Grothe at South Florida, up 58-7 against Charleston Southern. We ran him. Next thing we know, our season's over. We end up going to the bowl, but obviously, so we've all seen it. But kids are resilient, right? I mean, after we lost Matt Grothe at USF, 2 weeks later, we come to Florida State and beat Florida State, a team that we should not have beat. But just talk about the resiliency of football teams, football players, football coaches.
Well, right. So to the watcher's point, Jim's point, he didn't do it all by himself. We get that, right? But Jordan was kind of a get out of jail free card. Shortcomings in the offensive line, not being great at times. He make 3 people miss and you get a first down or a touchdown, right? Complementary football, sustaining drives helps rest the defense, all those kinds of things. And, in the back of your mind, you always knew we had a chance to win the game when Jordan was in there. That being said, these guys, there's a lot of talent on this team. There's a lot of talent on this team in a lot of different spots. And, Tate Rodemaker is going to line up at quarterback. He's going to look beside him. He's going to see Trey Benson. He's going to look outside one side. He's going to see Keon Coleman. He's going to look at the other side, look at Johnny Wilson. He's going to look over here and see his old high school teammate, Jaheim Bell, right? I think that's pretty good. He doesn't have to do it all by himself. He just has to do what his job is. And he doesn't have to do anything more than that. If he does that, we're going to be okay. Offensive line is going to have to, find a way to run the ball against a big Florida defense that can run. That's going to be inspired, right? They're going to have to find a way. Defense is going to have to, do what they've been doing, quite frankly. They're going to have to, do their part. So it's a team game, yes. And but what the games are going to look like is going to change, and we got to understand that. And going and moving forward, but kids understand that. And if everybody just does their job, that mantra that Mike always says, "This is about us, not anybody else," is true. And I think those kids know that, and they've been trained that way. That's the good part.
All right. Well, listen, before we move to Florida, let's stay on Saturday night. We all knew that we would see Tate and Brock play. We had no idea that those reps would turn out to be as impactful, and the evaluation of those reps to be needed right away. We thought, hey, Travis is going to be out by halftime. We'll get to see Tate and Brock playing some sort of mop-up duty. That's not what happened. Tate came in to another game against a team from Northern Alabama where they were down 13-0. So there was, and I know that there was probably no thought process in the stadium, anybody watching the game, that it was ever going to be anything but a Florida State win. But he got thrown in there suddenly. And I think if you saw the injury, and I'm sure those players knew that this was going to be an injury that was going to impact Florida State for the rest of the season from the time they saw Jordan on the ground. But Curt, I'll start with you. I've been through the film. I've shared with all Osceola subscribers exactly what I thought about every single throw Tate made in that game and how he played and presented himself. But let's talk about everyone's takeaways from Tate's game against North Alabama, because I saw a kid that was confident, poised, took control of that huddle right away, drove Florida State down, finished that drive with 3 points, and then after the next drive was stopped, 3 straight touchdown drives. Of course, now one of those, I believe, was set up by Jerry and Jones, but nevertheless, 24 points in his, I believe, 4 of his first 5 possessions. But just talk about what you thought about Tate in that game.
Yeah, I thought frankly, to use Mike Norvell's word, I thought he responded pretty well. There were it feels like there were a few nervy moments at first. I think it was one where he turned the wrong way at a handoff or a potential handoff, and then he had one on the goal line as well. But really from there, after that first drive, and he got the chance to go to the bench to talk to Tony Tokar from the headset. I'm sure Mike Norvell talked to him, and I really thought he settled in very well from there, like you said. I mean, I think and truthfully, that's what a fourth-year guy, even if, I mean, he doesn't have a ton of starting experience or a ton of playing experience, that's what a fourth-year guy against a team like North Alabama should do. But I thought he managed the game well. I mean, I think, frankly, he completed 13 of 23 passes, but I think that stat line's kind of not a testament to him. And there were a few drops. He did throw 2 touchdowns. He found Keon Coleman for one, found Johnny Wilson a few times, found Jaheim Bell. Thought he really spread the ball around to all the weapons you would expect him to, and was definitely competent enough to give you a little confidence going forward. Obviously, things about to get harder for him, but I think he gives them a chance the next few weeks, and that's really all you can ask for. I mean, when you lose a guy like Jordan Travis.
Yeah, listen, I had him down for 2 bad throws. The throw to Keon across his body was a mistake. The throw to Ja'Kai Douglas on the crossing route, if the safety had his eyes on the ball as opposed to the receiver, that's an interception. But listen, when he got flushed out of the pocket, the vast majority of the time, which he was under constant pressure, which surprised the living daylights out of me, he has shown development and maturity by getting rid of the ball. Now, it's going to be a different beast against Florida, as you alluded to. But, Jerry, just your thoughts. You and Mark were up in the Champions Club, I believe, possibly watching the game together. But just your thoughts on Tate's performance on Saturday night against North Alabama.
Well, in that little preview thing, you were the one who wanted us to write it about what player do you want to see play on Saturday against North Alabama. My first player I selected was Tate Rodemaker, and I wanted to see him play when the game was meaningful, not with the third team line. I wanted to see what he could do with Coleman and Johnny Wilson and Trey Benson. I had no idea that it would unfold the way that it unfolded, but I wanted to see how he would respond with the ones. And we got to see a lot of that. What I saw, and I'll just add on to what Curt said. I didn't disagree with anything Curt said there. But one thing I did see that I really felt good about is when he did have a pocket, he was very confident in the pocket. He stood tall, he climbed the ladder, and he was patient, and he found second and third options on those pass routes. And that's not something that a freshman quarterback does. If we were to put Brock Glenn in there, I don't think we'd see that. But we did see that with Rodemaker, as you should see with a guy who's had as many reps at practice as he's had. I think you guys know I've never doubted that Tate could be the guy. I mean, I've always felt like, when you're running with the third team offense or the second team offense back when we had no offensive linemen, it's hard to establish any kind of a tempo or momentum or any confidence in yourself. And that was what was so exciting about Louisville game a couple of years back, was I felt like it's not, I think there's 2 parts to this. One is Tate needs to feel confident that he can do it. And I think Louisville was, that moment for him where he said, hell, I brought him back. I mean, we were losing, and he led us back to victory and played a significant role in it. But more importantly than that, I think, is that his teammates saw him do it. And on Saturday, it was against North Alabama. It's not the same as him doing it against Louisville a couple of years ago. But I think, it gives you as a coaching staff, I think, some confidence that we can run these plays with him. He's going to execute them at a high level. And, after 4 years, that kid knows the playbook. It's not like you're going to start a freshman like Florida's having to do. And they're sitting down there trying to figure out what plays can we run with him. And he's got, 30 maybe, that they may have run only 10 different plays with him. So I feel pretty confident that Tate is going to be fine. And not to be disparaging to Travis, but I think there's some things Tate may do better. And I think after 4 years, Mike and Tokars know these are Tate's strengths, and they need to call plays that Tate is, and the talent around him is their sweet spot. Considering what Florida does well. But we've got a heck of a lot of knowledge as a coaching staff about who Tate is and that Florida doesn't have with their quarterback.
Yeah.
Mark, what were your thoughts after watching Tate for basically 2 quarters, really? I think they put Brock in the game with about 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and really kind of shut her down.
Yeah, no. I saw a guy that knows the offense. Look, playing quarterback is a real intricate thing, right? It's more than just calling a play and running a play. You got to call protections. You've got to point out, side adjustments. You've got to make reads. I mean, you got to get us in the right plays. Sometimes, plays are usually called, say, hey, either or, as we used to call them or whatever. But you know what? We're going to call a run. We're going to run into different looks. We like this look better than that. So we'll opposite the runs. A lot of times when you see backs switch sides, I mean, so getting us in the right plays, checking off, these reads, you got to make. So all that stuff that, you have to do as a quarterback takes time to learn and develop, and especially when you're an assistant. Well, he's had 4 years of it, to Jerry's point. He knows it. So now they just got to tailor the offense to his strengths. And I feel very confident they'll do that. They're also going to go to Tate. Hey, what do you like best? Right. They'll, I remember Mark Rick sitting in there with the quarterback, Charlie Chip and Dan, and like, hey, here's the game plan. Circle the plays you like best. And he'd have them circle, these, I like this versus this, on third down, I like this, and so, they have those meetings, and I know every quarterback does that with their, primary play caller. Where do they feel comfortable? What are the plays they have confidence in executing? And so those plays will be different than what Jordan would have circled, and so the offense by virtue is going to look a little different. But still okay. I mean, we have a tremendous inventory of plays. I mean, this offense is pretty diverse. And I have no doubt that he can execute it and do it. And Jerry's point, he may do some things even a little better. He's got a really good arm. That one throw he threw to Portier down on the sideline, that was a heck of a throw, man. That was a bullet. That was a rocket.
And a hell of a catch.
And he's got that in him. We saw him do it in Louisville. The other thing is, he can run. Now he doesn't have the short space quickness that Jordan has. So that can be, we just have to accept the fact that he's not going to get out of some of those things, and we may take a sack or have something bad happen from something like that. And that's just the way it is. But then by the same token, when he does get out in the open field, when he stretches his legs, he can gain some ground and get some yards. Right. Yep. So it's a good problem to have when you have your backup guy have, fourth year junior, that can execute the offense, have mastery of the offense. That's, to me, is the most important thing. And so I think, like I said, I'm okay. I'm curious to see what this offense looks like, and I'm excited to see the production that it'll have.
Yeah. Well, I got a follow-up question for you, because I've always said in these types of games, the only thing you're really going to take away, now obviously Tate's a different story because of the situation with Jordan not being there anymore. So his reps became a little bit more important, not that they weren't to begin with. But my biggest takeaway from a critical perspective was the way the offensive line performed against UNA. And I think that, I know everybody's talking about Tate, and the focus is going to be about Tate and how this offense changes, which I think it's only going to change a little bit. I mean, you got to get the balls to your playmakers. Those are who they are. That's not going to change. Maybe they weren't running Jordan a lot in the dedicated run game anyway. He's not going to be able to
run that anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was not running the ball very much anyway. So you don't have to change a whole lot. But listen, I had FSU giving up pressures or sacks on at least 10, and I gave them a credit on one because Tate kind of stepped up into the pressure, probably a little bit too close. But, the offensive line, Mark, was not very good on Saturday night. Was that a byproduct of who they played? Are they regressing? What's going on with the offensive line?
I don't know. I suspect that they're pretty beat up, and I think there's guys out there that maybe are not. I know they're not 100%, and that it definitely has an effect on it. And coupled with the fact that you had all the pomp and circumstance of, the last game and all that was going on, and then you had a less than opponent. I mean, I tell the story on here before about, my senior year when, we beat Auburn in Jordan Hare, came back here, played Furman, and then the next week we had Florida, and I got fired in the second half because I was playing so bad, right? After I had played a great game against Auburn, I played a great game the next week against Florida, So I'm gonna chalk it up to it being, lack of mental focus, maybe some guys that are beat up, guys playing less than, and and just say, what, those things happen. And I know we haven't been great in a lot of areas for a balance of the year, and it hasn't been a strong point for us. But it doesn't matter now. We got a game against Florida. They've got an opportunity. Hopefully we see guys like Rob Scott and hopefully Mo's okay and he can play. But Darius, I thought he's okay at center. But you're right though. They got to elevate their level of play against an athletic front. At least the outside guys, guys that can run are on that field on the other side. And you know what? North Carolina, they're slanting and just doing all this pissy little things that kind of frustrate you as an offensive lineman. And sometimes you're just like, I got to put up with this today. These little piss ants. It's like playing in a service academy almost. They just they're fired up, and you're just kind of going through. And then I think what Jordan happened. So yeah, I'm going to chalk it up to that and have all the confidence in the world. They're going to come out and they're going to play their best game on Saturday.
Well, and I think that Florida gives them a chance to play better because this is not the Florida defense we're accustomed to seeing. 100th in the nation in sacks made, 113th in tackles for loss, 93rd in total defense. I think they give up. I think Curt said they're last in the country, and
they've given up, I think, 20 40-yard pass plays.
Yeah.
So listen, this is not the.
But they're going to be the world beaters against us. You know that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I throw all. I mean, it's cliche as it is. You throw all that out. Look at them against Tennessee. Look at them against Tennessee. Right? They can put it. They can put it together. For a little bit. They did against Tennessee, and dominated that team. So we just to Jerry's point, we just got to get it out of them early.
The Rob Scott, to talk about this, the offensive line, the Rob Scott situation is interesting. It sounds like maybe he'll be so. Alex Atkins Monday talked about. He said I think there was a third straight game where he dressed out and didn't play, but Alex said Monday that he was available if necessary. Was basically what he said Saturday. So I'm thinking maybe they're just hoping they could rest him up for the stretch run as it was, which I'd say you're firmly in now.
Yes, definitely in the stretch run as they try to get
the last regular season game count as a stretch run.
Yeah, I think it is. Well,
knee deep in it.
When you potentially got 3 other games outside of that season finale, I think it's safe to say they're in a stretch run. All right, so Mark, you kind of alluded to it earlier, and I'll start with you, Jerry, because you mentioned it too. We haven't seen a whole lot of Jordan Travis in the run game this year, so I don't think things are going to change very much. I think that you got to get the ball to Keon, you got to get the ball to Johnny, you got to get the ball to Jaheim, you got to get the ball to Trey, right? I mean, that's not going to change. Same thing on Florida side. Max Brown's a redshirt freshman quarterback, only thrown 12 passes. Billy Napier said, listen, you can only do what your quarterback does, but we know who our playmakers are, and we got to get the ball, find a way to get the ball to them through this kid. I'm of the opinion that we will see minor tweaks. You're so late in the season. I don't think you're going to see an overhaul of either offense because of what they do. But what are you expecting from Florida State's offense, Jerry, and what do you expect to see from Florida's offense?
Well, I would agree with you, Pat. I don't think you're going to see a lot of it. The nuance may not be noticeable with Florida State's offense because Tate can run everything that Jordan runs, with a few exceptions. And so as concerned as I am about, how Rodemaker plays in Gainesville, I'm more concerned about the other 16 or 18 guys that'll play on offense. You want to execute. And so I wouldn't change much. you know?
Oh, I wouldn't either. Curt, what about you?
No, I agree. That's the thing is like a lot of what you did with Jordan. I don't think Tate's going to run like the speed options that they were running some against Miami, but Tate can run read option competently. Tate can do pretty much everything. He's not going to have the escapability Jordan did, but yeah, I think the offense. I mean, like Mark said, and I think Alex even said as much yesterday when we talked to him that like you do talk to Tate with the difference with him coming into the weak ass QB1 is you do. I mean, like Mark said, you talk to him and say, what plays do you like? You're having those conversations with him when normally you have them with Jordan. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it helps Tate that that atmosphere last year, I guess Mark and Pat, you were both there too, was not as hostile as the one he's going to face Saturday, but it was a hostile atmosphere, and Tate led that second half comeback with not as talented an offense. So yeah, I mean, I think that helps. I mean, obviously, I think you want to queue up some quote unquote easy stuff early. I think you want that script to be really good, but I don't know. I wonder if you cork up some early deep shots. I think I mean that's I think maybe Tate's best throws are those deep balls. I think he throws a really pretty one. So I do wonder if with the receivers you have and the QB you're going to have, if that's maybe a part of the early game plan.
Well, he's got two that can catch him, Keon and Johnny. So take some shots, use that size advantage.
So hey, I gotta mention this. During the game, I had a guy sitting about 8 or 10 rows behind me, and every play, he was screaming for Norvell to run Jordan, run Jordan, run Jordan. And then as soon as Jordan ran the RPO and took off with it, got the first down and kept fighting for more. The guy behind me went off on Norvell, and it's just funny. I don't see with Jordan down and with Tate, your backup in there, and a true freshman and Glenn, that you're going to take many chances with Tate.
Yeah, running the ball. Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, I think you got to protect him a little bit. And
I agree.
And I think Florida might. I don't know what their third team quarterback looks like, but this kid is a dual threat.
Yeah.
I don't want to put him in the class of Castellanos, but he's pretty good with his legs.
Yeah, I think they got the same problem, Jerry. If they're down to him, I don't know how. And again,
maybe Jack Miller, right?
If you're now, maybe he makes up for some things if protection breaks down, extends plays, that kind of thing. But
that's what I see.
Yeah, and he's got two backs that have rushed for over 700 yards, so I don't think they'll change much at all either. Because of the depth problem at quarterback, the same thing we have here now with Jordan gone, and I think obviously because of who they are as an offense, their identity's already been established. Mark, what do you say
about the offense?
Yep.
About quarterbacks.
About the quarterback and how you use Tate and
how
Florida uses.
I agree with Curt in that, and I told Jerry this at the game. I said I wish we'd do more deep shots, especially with Tate. I think we're going to need to the very least scare the bejesus out of them to keep them back off of us, discourage them from blitzing too much. And getting the ball out of his hand quick, right? I see us doing, keeping up with the screen game, play action screen game. I love it. We're good at it. It's something that we execute at a high level. So keep that going. And there's got to be some kind of running. Running game is the quarterback's best friend, right? So that's got to be a part of it too. But look, it's all there. It's all there. And I think Tate does something real well. He does the RPO real well. It's funny because I got to think that we had some blind calls on some of these runs and RPO looking things with Jordan for some reason. And I don't know what the reason is, because like against the Miami game, we'd run, we had Benson in the pistol, and Jordan opened up that midline, and his eyes are on that flat defender, and he's putting the ball in the belly, and that flat defender is boogieing in there. I mean, he could have just pulled it and thrown it 20 times in that game. Never did. Or he take off and run it. Even though they had 20 watching him, he could have, with a 5-yard cushion, he's going to juke anybody, right? But he never did. And I know Tate does that well. He did well against Louisville. I think he hit a couple the other night where he sticks the ball in Benson's belly, pull it out, hit that slant. If that flat defender wants to come and stick his nose in there on the running game, try to fill that extra gap. I think that's a high percentage throw for Tate. So find those high percentage throws, those things he reads good and keeps get the ball out of his hand quick. Because like I said, his short space quickness his escapability is not very good, and that's okay. Just get the ball out of his hand, and I think there's going to be a lot of that. As far as Florida goes, they're going to do what they do. They're going to try to jam it down our throat with those two backs. They're going to do a lot of one thing about Napier is he likes to dial up about 10 or 12 shots a game, right? So he's going to have those shots, and it's all going to be based off of the run action. It's going to be run, reverse pass, run, deep shot, funny formation, run, shot. I mean, it's those things. Again, same kind of thought. Take a lot of eye candy, right? We were very susceptible to a lot of eye candy earlier in the year. So with them, you're going to see a lot of eye candy, a lot of shifting, motion back, orbit motion, all kinds of things. So they're going to do that to protect their kid too. But I think the kid is who he is. He's going to take off and run. If his first read's not there, I see that kid taking off and running. And we got to be ready for that. And we're going to play it the same way we probably always play those kind of guys. We're going to put Caitlin Deloach on the open side, on the line of scrimmage, one linebacker in the box, and he's going to be watching for opposite side of the back. He's going to be watching for that quarterback keep, right? Maybe even get a little spy with Shaheem Brown coming in there spying up. I mean, all those things that we'll do to adjust to a running quarterback that we've done in the past, we'll probably keep doing those same kind of things. We are who we are, and so the ability to but it's going to start with stopping Johnson and Etienne. That's where it's going to stop. That's where it starts for us. If we do that, we take all that other stuff out of there.
Yeah, I think it has to be similar to kind of the second half versus Miami approach. Obviously, Emory's not, I don't think, nearly as mobile as Max Brown is, but I think it's a lot of stack in the box to not get beat by traditional run, and I think it's a lot of blitzes from atypical places to really mess with their eyes and really keep them on their toes.
Yeah, I think Florida's got a problem with Florida State's defense. If Adam continues to do what he's been doing, which is bring pressure from the second and third level, whether it's pass, run. They are ranked 100th in TFLs allowed, 112th in sacks allowed. Despite, that they do have a good passing offense with Mertz, 29th. They're 78th running the ball. Do you guys expect Adam to stay where he's stick with the game plans he's had, or bring more pressure, less pressure? I think that.
I think Florida, like I just said, they do something that the last couple of teams we've played haven't done a lot of, and that's the eye candy stuff. Like Clemson does, like LSU did and burned us. Some teams have done in the past, and I've made the comment here the last couple of weeks that we've seen have cleaned a lot of that stuff up in terms of miscommunication, but we haven't seen a lot of the shifting motions, all that stuff pre-snap that they're going to do. So that's going to be interesting. I suspect he's going to keep it simple early until he gets a beat on what it is. And if the running game becomes a problem, if we can beat them, they have their problems on the OL too, right? They've got tackles out. They're playing with 13 guys. I mean, they're beat up pretty much too. And look, this is a game for number 5 to make some money. It's a game for, number 44 to make some money and number 0 to make some money. I mean, this is their money game here. There's a lot to play for. So, if we're able to stop the run and contain all that other stuff, playing it simple, I suspect that he's going to start simple early, and if we're struggling, then all the other stuff will start happening. Right? He'll start taking more chances.
I've got a comment on that I want to bring up in a minute, but first, Weiler was asking about it. He was curious if the second team center and Tate have had a lot of practice time together. And Weiler, the way Atkins works the offensive line, he cross-trains those guys pretty much. So at practice, Curt and I, we see a lot of Washington at center with Tate in the game. So they're not strangers to each other.
Mark, and I put that question up there. I'm curious. I know he does work a lot with Darius, and Maurice obviously got hurt later in that game. Seems like he's questionable entering this weekend. If it is, we assume it'll be Darius, not David Stickle, if Maurice wasn't able to go Saturday. how big a deal is that chemistry if that's a guy he's practiced with more than even Maurice, the starter, who probably works predominantly with Jordan in practice?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. I
Okay.
mean, I don't think it's a big deal. I think
You would know. That's why I asked. You would know.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a big deal. Like Jerry said, they cross train a lot anyways, and plus they're going to have this whole week of practice together. You know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bigger deal if they were under the center offense. I don't think it's as big a deal in the shotgun. I think that's
for sure.
Kurt, we're blessed to have two former centers on here, so we should.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, Mark, I wanted to follow up on a conversation we had within the last week or two about how Adam might approach this. And you made the statement just a few minutes ago that he's probably going to sit back and wait and get a feel for them before, he starts playing games or adjusting. But you made the point, and I thought it was a good point, that when the offense gets the ball at their own 25-yard line and they're running the ball and they're getting 5 and 6 yards and they get a couple first downs and they get up around the 50, fans tend to panic. They go,
right.
Oh, we got to stop the bleeding. And what I think a lot of fans don't realize is when you play that kind of a defense, keep things in front of you, try not to give up the big gash plays. The field gets shorter when you get to the red zone or even inside the 30. Your safeties have got a friend behind them. And, I don't think Adam panics when they move the chains a couple times. And I would suspect that's what we'll see with Florida. That
Adam is very strategic. He's a smart guy. And he has a vision for how his defense is going to play, how they need to play a particular offense, and whatever it is that day, it is. I just suspect from having watching it for the last several years, if he can stop the run with 6 in the box, when they're in 11 personnel, that's the best of both worlds. That's the ultimate, right? So, let's give it. Let's see what it looks like, and if we can do that, fine. But you're right; when that field starts to constrict, and look, we're excellent in red zone defense, right? We have been excellent all year on red zone defense, and that field starts to constrict, and those windows get tighter, those safeties get a little closer, those 5 and 6 yards start, and look, all you need is one play to get them behind the chains, right? So you play a team like this that wants to grind it out. It happened against Miami, right? Miami wants to grind it out, and they had some success running the ball early, do some bad tackling or whatever. But in the second half, all of a sudden, boom, you start getting them behind the chains, and they're in trouble because they can't throw the ball. And he is patient in that he understands that this is what the problems that their offense will have against our defense, and he plays to our strengths. We're not a team that's going to play man coverage against on the board from the minus 25-yard line. I mean, we're not going to do that. And there's a reason for that, right? Because who we have covering, the safety play, whatever it is, whatever he feels is our best chance to win the game, that's what he's going to do. If he goes against type and starts playing press man, all over the field, all of a sudden we start getting burned and getting big chunk plays in the passing game, I would be shocked as anybody because that's against type. That's not who we are, and that's not our strength. So, yeah.
Hey, Jerry, by the way, I saw your boy Conrad Hussey playing some nickel corner against North Alabama. So he's been playing mostly safety, right? So they're starting to expand his role. All right, so guys, Mark, I got a question for everybody because we're either all graduated from Florida State, and obviously Mark played for Florida State. But I listened to Billy Napier's press conference on Monday, and most coaches glow when they talk about or say have glowing comments about Florida State and the type of football team. We hear about Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Kalen DeLoach and what great football players they are, explosive on both sides of the ball, make explosive plays on offense, make big plays on defense. Napier would ask about Florida State. And I want to know how this would affect you as a player and a coach, and would you use this as a motivating factor? Because I kind of thought it was kind of really a watered down comment. It was the quote was FSU is a well thought of football team. I kind of took that as, listen, Billy Napier is not the most polished speaker. He could not go on the speaking circuit or work a church like Mike Norvell and Bobby Bowden and people like that. But a well thought of football team. As a former player, and would that motivate you that you're the fourth ranked team in the country, fifth ranked team in the country, depending on what poll you're paying attention to, and the only one that matters is fixing to drop here in about 5 minutes. But how did you take? I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that comment, heard the comment, but I found it odd that you would refer to them as a well thought of football team. I thought it was a shot.
Obviously, the unspoken comment that he's saying there is, well, they're well thought of, but I don't think much of them, right? So, look, underestimate us at your own peril. That's my response. And as a player, look, there's plenty of motivating things that would motivate me about this game beyond what this coach says at a press conference. There's enough there. There's personal stuff with other players. There's guys that you don't like. You don't like the school because the way they recruited you, maybe, or didn't recruit you. In my case, there's any number of factors that would motivate you other than what he says in a press conference. I promise you.
Jerry or Curt, do y'all have any comments on what he said as far as that?
I mean, it's funny. Yeah. His quotes are interesting. It's funny. He also, I think, got asked like what he thinks of how the season has gone or something. The last quote in your transcript on the Osceola.com, where he kind of was like, yeah, I think like we could win, we could beat anybody and we could lose to anybody. And it's been an up and it was kind of just like a very like, he has some interesting comments. I mean, frankly, as there's been that roller coaster of a season down there, it's gotten kind of contentious with the media at times. He does not especially appreciate, it feels like, some of the questions coming his way. But I don't know if that's like his strength, like it is some coaches.
Well, he's not wrong. He's not wrong in that.
No,
he's right. They could beat anybody. They could lose to anybody. But that's an indictment on him for not getting the most out of his team, right?
And they've been and can really continue to be a mess. And like it would not be shocking at all if there's a moment where they have a special teams mess or a who knows what kind of mess. I mean, the longer they keep just having that roller coaster, I mean, there've been more ups, I would say, than the Willie Taggart era, but the comparisons are there for sure.
Well, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Yeah,
and it's we do things that good football teams do to win games.
Yep.
That's where we are. We don't get a lot of stupid penalties. We don't have a lot of substitution errors. We don't throw a lot of interceptions, fumbles. Turn the ball over. We don't do those stupid things that get you stupid penalties that help lose games. Fact of the matter is, they do, and he's right. That's where they are right now. And we were at that point. And Miami does same thing with Miami, and we were that 2 years ago. How many times did we come on here and say if we just would get rid of that stuff, we'd have a chance to win games. And we have gotten. Was that?
And if we would fight and not quit.
Fight and not quit. Yeah, 100%.
Fight like that.
And so we do that. That's why, even though we've lost our leader, that has carryover, right? That has carryover. We're not going to do stupid things. Now, Tate may throw a pick here. He's just whatever happens there is fine. But as far as those like pre-snap penalties and those organizational things, late hits. We don't do that kind of stuff. And that oftentimes is the difference in a ball game. And Billy Napier can sit here and pontificate about, where his team is and all that stuff about, this and that. But truth of the matter is that's coaching.
Yeah, I think they need to have Billy on like a hard 10-minute limit. He's one of those guys. Listen, I like Billy Napier. I don't have anything against him just because he's a Florida coach. I like watching his teams at Louisiana. I've been following him since Clemson. But listen, I will say that was at least candid and honest. He was honest with that answer about the fact that they could beat everybody and they could lose to everybody. Thought that was kind of refreshing. It was not typical coach speak, but yeah, that was one of his last questions he answered before they started asking him about the portal and recruiting and how this game will be impacted, both those particular things. But go ahead, Jerry.
I want to ask a question.
Yep.
We're talking about a rivalry game, what Bill McGrotha used to call the game. And Mark, Pat had brought up the thing about things that get a team, emotionally ready to play or fired up, whatever the word you want to use is. But what are the things that going into this rivalry game, if you were to speak to the team or you were to speak to the coaches, what are the things that are important with emotion for this game?
What are the things that are important with emotion in this game? I think the same thing that we talked about going in Miami. You got to control that. You got to control that emotion, control that energy. You do want to be pissed off. You do want to be fired up, but you got to channel it the right way. You got to make sure that you're only exhausting that energy on plays, not between plays. The things that we saw against Miami gets a personal foul penalty called against them in Florida State for running their mouth. Florida State obviously not doing. I think they had 3 penalties for 35 yards against Miami. I think those are the kind of things. I think you want to be focused. I think, as Mark said, there are enough things. You played against these guys in high school. You were recruited by both programs, or you weren't. But I do think coaches are always looking for that additional edge, right? What's going to get? What might would that quote motivate Braden Fisk? Maybe you don't let everybody else on the team. But I do think that it's controlled emotion. And I do think that you want to stay who you are. And I think, listen, everybody's a creature of habit, right? And Florida State, as Mark said, has created some really good habits. So it would be out of character for them to get caught up in wasted energy type things where you're jawing with somebody or hitting somebody late just because you're fired up. But Mark, you've been in this situation more than I have.
Well, it's the antithesis of what happened last week. You got to bring intensity and you got to bring focus, right? And the intensity is that emotion channeled into what is you have to accomplish during the course of the game, and the focus is not letting the extraneous things, the emotion and all that stuff affect your thought process, reaction time, where your eyes are supposed to be, all that stuff you have to do to mentally play the game in the right way, right? But it's going to be amped up. There's going to be a lot of, they're going to be very emotional and intense, and you've got to match that intensity, but it's got to be in the right way. And I think we did a great job of that against Miami, I thought. And to Miami's credit, they did it too. That it was not near as much of that stuff as I thought there was going to be in the game. In this game, I have no idea. I think they could go that way for them for sure, because their back is against the wall. They're going to come out fighting, swinging. They're going to try to get every edge they can. If that means, they're going to try to get in guys, faces and do a bunch of stuff, fine. You know what? F you. I'm going to go back to the huddle. I'm going to get you the next snap, and then I'm going to embarrass you on national TV. That's the attitude you got to have, right?
Selection show just started, guys. I think they're about to start announcing.
Yeah, and I think they ran a banner that said Mike's going to appear at some point on the show.
I think that's true. I had heard that.
I think that's.
I hadn't had that confirmed, but
yeah, I think that is. All right, so before we get started with the rankings part of it, I'm not going to ask you for who you would have ranked in your top 6, but where do you guys think Florida State's going to end up being ranked this week? And Mark,
where do I think?
Yeah,
I think they're going to have us at 5.
Okay,
and I think I've heard it ad nauseum. Washington's beating beating Oregon State, a top 12 team in Oregon, just kind of put them over the top for us. I mean, look, our schedule, they haven't held up their end of the bargain, and it is what it is. And frankly, I really don't care, because here's the deal. An undefeated Power 5 conference champion is in the playoff. There's no way they're going to roll out Duke Oregon out there and get asked the question, why is not Florida State in the playoff? And his answer is going to be because the ACC is not a good league, as the athletic director of NC State. They're not going to do that.
And as the son of former Commissioner Gene Corrigan.
Exactly. So, I expect us to be 5. I'm okay with it. It is what it is. And I really don't think that the whole Jordan Travis thing is going to have any effect on whether or not, we make a playoff or not. I think that's just talking points for TV.
Well, the thing is tonight, I mean, I thought we would go to 5 last week, so it won't surprise me if we do this week. The thing is, though, that there's going to be teams lose ahead of you. And, I mean, Michigan, Ohio State.
One of them has to, yeah.
And then the second thing is you beat Florida, and I don't care if Florida's a 5-6 team or not. It gets people's attention. And if you beat Louisville, now you have a much stronger resume than we can claim right now.
That's another top 10 win. Assuming Louisville beats Kentucky, they'll be in the top 10 next weekend. They were 10th last week. I imagine they'll be 10th because I don't think anybody in the top 10 lost last weekend. It's been the chalkiest season. It's crazy. I think they've never had in the playoff era 5 undefeated Power 5 teams this far into the season. Look at Clemson getting ranked.
Clemson's back in. That helps.
Little Clemson.
Where are they at? Where did they
24,
come in?
24. And
They beat South Carolina this week, and all of a sudden they're 8-4.
Yeah,
and you were the only team to beat them at Clemson this year.
Right.
Yep. So that helps.
That kind of makes it a quality win in its own right.
Yes,
NC State's ranked too. So they're going to be 4 ranked ACC teams. North Carolina's going to fall out, but Clemson and North Carolina, or NC State and Clemson are both in.
Who's NC State have this week?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
It's home cooking with Boo.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'll fall. Beating Florida in Gainesville. I don't care how good or bad they are, but you do have a team that has SEC Division I athletes. That's got to count for something. And then Louisville beats Kentucky, and we beat Louisville. Louisville will be a top 7 team, maybe.
Wow,
18.
Oregon State falls 5 places after losing to Washington. That's crazy.
They were a favorite technically.
And Iowa, your team, Curt. Iowa.
We'll see if that line's at 27.5 this week. I'm not sure I'm running back the 3-peat. I have benefited from those Iowa unders the last 2 weeks, but I'm not sure I have the guts to bet under 27.5.
Phil Parker should be. I know Adam Fuller's up for it, but Phil Parker to carry that team to 9 wins should be the Frank Broyles Award winner this year for what he has carried that. His defense has carried that program this year. What do they average per game, Curt? Do you remember?
No, I do not offhand.
All right, well, that's I did not think that Oregon State would fall 5 spots back down. Notre Dame moved up.
For some of the fans on here that may not know the Corrigan deal, when we joined the ACC,
LSU at 14. Sorry about that, Jerry.
Back in the day, in 92, I guess it was, Gene Corrigan was the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And he was former Notre Dame AD and took over the reins for the conference and came down here and impressed everybody. He's a class act. And Boo is his son. And Boo was just graduating college at that time. And so Gene got him a job here at Florida State. So Boo worked at Florida State as a marketing guy in our marketing department. That was his first job.
I didn't know that.
So there's some history with Boo Corrigan in Florida State.
So if Florida State's still 4, that's why.
Yeah.
And what I'll say is the case for Florida State at 4 is Florida State is higher in a lot of the metrics. It's higher in FPI. It's higher in SP plus. Kind of, I think the computers, even with the wins Washington has, think Florida State's a better team. Obviously, I don't think the computers can factor in the Jordan Travis of it all. And that has to be – it's not factored in of whether they're in the conversation or not, but it has to be factored into the chances of Florida State winning their next 2 games for sure. I mean, you don't just replace somebody like Jordan Travis.
Well, we do know, as we talked about on Monday, we do know that the committee does take injuries into account. So it doesn't help Florida State. But to your point, Curt, if they take care of business and they take care of it convincingly – maybe that helps eliminate some of that argument against Florida State.
All right, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this: if we barely beat Florida and don't look really good doing it, is that a strike against us? because of the eye test, or is it about the result?
I think all that would affect if they win both those games is the seeding. To me, it opens the path for maybe a 1-loss team being ahead of you. But like you said, I don't see you getting left out.
I think that you got to take into account that it's a rivalry game and you're on the road. I think looking back, I think a close loss against Louisville hurts them worse than a close win to Louisville hurts them worse than a close win at Florida.
Even against the top 17.
Yeah.
Louisville's
still at 10. They did not move up any, despite beating the Hurricanes.
Let's be honest with each other. If Florida State goes out and plays well against Florida, and Rodemaker plays well,
yep,
our confidence in this football team is going to go up.
I agree.
I mean, the eye test applies to every one of us.
And listen, their confidence is going to go
up. If we go out there and stink it up, and Rodemaker doesn't look like he's the guy, that's going to affect our viewpoint too.
Yep.
And I totally understand the case that some people will make of, I'm not sure Florida State with Tate Rodemaker is one of the 4 best teams. But at a certain point, what the wins and losses have to matter, And I mean, you will have enough of it's almost better, I think, in a way for Florida State that they'll have 2 games to be able to prove what they can be under Tate. Like if Jordan got hurt late in the ACC championship game, depending on how things broke down, and you didn't have that sample size with Tate, you almost wonder if the committee would hold against him more just because of like the unknown.
I would agree.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think Florida State, as Mark's alluded to, you guys have alluded to, they got some football players on this team. I don't think this team is just going to all of a sudden crumble and look not even resemble themselves. I do think that I think the closer we get to the end of the season and after championship weekend, I think they're going to probably dive a little deeper into their analysis of these teams. Obviously, we've got a game this weekend that's going to eliminate an undefeated team in either Ohio State or Michigan. And Florida State could end up right back in the top 4 next weekend, depending on how it looks against Florida this weekend. So I don't think it's over, but I think we're going to start once we have the totality of everyone's resume. Like when you look at Washington, it would be hard for me if I was on this panel to keep Washington out over Florida State because they played 4 ranked teams. Florida's got now Florida State's got 2. Clemson helps. And they need Clemson to stay on there. All right, Oregon 6. So we're still in front of Oregon,
as they should be.
I still can't believe Alabama behind.
Mark, you'll remember this as a coach at FSU. I like our chances of getting in the playoffs a lot better right now than I did in 1993, right after we got beat by Notre Dame.
Right.
That took a freaking miracle for Boston College to beat Notre Dame.
Well, we might get one or 2 of those in the next 2 weeks. Who knows?
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean,
so the same.
When we lost that game, it was like a funeral.
Right.
And then I remember we were on the field warming up, getting ready to play NC State, and that result came over the loudspeaker, and everybody just all of a sudden it just ramped up. It was like, what? And then we ended up beating NC State like 70-0 that day. I mean, it was.
Well, listen, it's very feasible that Oregon State could lose to beat Oregon, and that gets the Ducks out of the water. Texas Tech has beaten Texas before. 2-loss Texas.
Washington State could give Washington a game.
You need Louisville to beat Kentucky to stay as high as ranked as they can be.
Where it gets hairy is Alabama beats Georgia, I'm about ready to predict that.
You can't rule out Auburn beating Alabama. You can never rule that out, and especially with the week Auburn just had. I mean, that's a motivating factor. I know I just got the eye roll from Pat. I don't expect it, but that is a rivalry where you can never count it out.
Jared Kill just handed Hugh Freeze his ass.
He did, and that's a heck of a motivator going into Bama.
You can spin it any way you want.
That's right, Kurt. I don't agree with you. Hey, listen, I think you got a more legit argument. I think you got a more legit argument with Georgia Tech over Georgia than you do Auburn over Alabama.
Spoken as a true Alabama fan.
Oh no,
Yeah.
listen,
I'm not by any means picking that, but I think the possibility must be addressed. I mean, is that any crazier than Boston College beating Notre Dame?
well, it would take something like a kick six to make it happen. And how many times are those going to happen in one
Punt,
lifetime?
Bama, punt.
No. Yeah. It could happen. You're right. And we see crazy shit happen every week in college football. And it is a rivalry game.
And we're due for the craziness. This has been the chalkiest season.
All right, here they come, boys. They got the bracket out. Oh my God, I thought they were going from 5 to 1. They threw Georgia up first. I was like, holy shit, how's Georgia number 5?
No, yeah, they know the drama is 4 versus 5.
Oh, okay. Well, that tells you right there if they did that.
I tend to agree. I think they're telling on themselves a bit, but we'll see. The top 3 should be the same. And it's about 4 or 5. And I tend to think, I mean, we all thought coming in they were going to. And again, I don't think it's about Jordan. I think it's about, Washington's beaten 3 straight teams that were ranked at the time. The last one on the road as an underdog, technically, that's noteworthy.
Hey, speaking while we're waiting, I've heard a couple things today. That Harbaugh, this was Urban Meyer and Ohio State too. Urban Meyer and Colin Cowherd talking that Jim Harbaugh may not be back next year, and that Brian Kelly could have interest in the Michigan job. Wouldn't that be something?
Oh my gosh, just job hopping.
Yep.
He does not strike me as a Michigan man. They're gonna have to swallow some pride if they're about their whole like Michigan man traditions if they're hiring him.
A lot more Michigan man than an LSU man.
Maybe, yeah.
Does he have a Michigan accent?
I think he could pull it off.
He probably has a house on one of the Great Lakes.
He'll go too far west and end up in Fargo doing that accent.
Not a lot of difference between a Michigan accent and a New Hampshire accent.
He doesn't even have a New Hampshire accent, does he?
That's where he's from, yeah.
Here we go, Michigan 3.
All right, Michigan 3. So one of those.
And he coached at Grand Valley State, right? That's where.
That's true.
He won like 4 national championships at Grand Valley, something like that.
Right.
3.
Yeah.
He seems like a good pick for that job.
It's very funny how much drama they're building over something when literally if all these teams win next week, 4 or 5 right now doesn't matter because Ohio State or Michigan has to lose. That's just so funny to me. They're building over all this drama. I mean, they're playing this long time waiting to talk about who's 4. Let's see who 4 is. And it won't matter in a week's time if everybody else wins next week.
Well, they got to fill they got 14 minutes to fill, or I think 14 more minutes.
Yeah, well, they got a Mike Norvell interview. They got a Boo Corrigan interview.
And we're all hanging on every word
with bated breath. I don't care what they have to say. I just want to see.
I can't hear. I do not have the sound up.
I just want to see where they're ranked.
I think Bob is on sound duty for this. He might be able to come on and report back in a bit what Mike says. I'm not sure because I've got to get the story up whenever this comes out.
And then what we thought, Washington 4. All right, so no surprise there, right? And they've kind of earned it. 4 ranked team wins or 4 wins over ranked teams. They're perfect on the season. They've probably got the Heisman Trophy front runner right now. And there's Florida State, number 5. All right, so obviously Ohio State, Michigan play this weekend. Somebody's going to lose that game. I think, would it be safe to say that we all expect Florida State to be back at number 4 this time next week if everything goes to chalk and Florida wins, Georgia wins, Washington wins?
Yeah.
So the only way that wouldn't happen, given that scenario, is if they think that the team that lost, say Michigan and Ohio State, play a really close game, and they don't want it. Say Michigan beats Ohio State, and they let Ohio State fall to 4. But I just don't see that happening.
Well,
Jerry, it could happen, but then you're going to have that 13th data point, right? You're going to have that championship game that we're going to play, that the winner of that game is going to play.
Yep.
Washington's going to play, and Georgia's going to play.
Right.
And they're one of those. So they may do that.
Upset.
They very well may do that. But now we're going to have an extra data point, and they're not. And that has traditionally weighed a lot in their mind, right? To put a one-loss non-conference champion in it would really go against type. I mean that's.
Yeah, so Mike, I don't fret over this. I just
no, I don't either.
Just not fret over beating Florida. Beat Florida.
Yeah,
the story I just published, this doesn't change anything long term.
No.
I think Washington should be ahead in terms of resume, ahead of Florida State right now. But if Florida State wins the next two, we all think they'll be in because one of the teams ahead of them has to lose, and it's entirely possible another one does.
And listen, Washington's probably got Washington and Georgia probably have the two most difficult championship games. You got Georgia's going to play Alabama. Washington's going to play Oregon. That Washington-Oregon game was extremely close the first time they played. It's probably the best game of the year so far. And then Georgia, as Jerry has pointed out, Alabama is playing as good as any team in the SEC right now, even Georgia. And although Georgia seems to be really that quarterback really seems to be playing really well. And Tennessee, they were light work for Georgia.
Where's the Washington-Oregon game played?
I believe that's played in San Francisco, right?
Is it San Francisco or is it Vegas?
Vegas. They're going to Vegas this year, I believe. Are you talking about the first one, Mark?
I'm talking about the championship game for the Pac-12.
Oh, I think it used to be in the 49ers stadium.
It's at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas.
It's in Vegas, yeah. So they've moved to Vegas.
It sounds like a road trip, Salva.
Let's do it.
What they ought to do is just have all the conference championship games out there on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Could you imagine?
This is interesting. You see what they're doing now? They're comparing Florida State and Michigan.
Yep. Yeah, well, listen, I think that's probably that's
Michigan
a more
did look
favorable.
great Saturday.
That's a more favorable comparison for Florida State than against Washington, I think, just because of the strength of record.
I'm a little surprised Michigan's still ahead of Washington. They did not dominate. They did not dominate Maryland. They borderline should have lost that game.
Well,
JJ McCarthy is not blowing me away.
Yeah, I think the knock against Washington, you and Jerry have pointed out several times in our conversations, is their defense just has not played well consistently.
Yeah.
I think that
I do think that's true.
And of course, the Washington State game is not going to be quite as cracked up as it was earlier in the year when Washington State was in the top 20. Now they're kind of floundering, although they did take care of
and when I say they don't play well, they're ranked like 112th or something.
Yeah,
in defense. I mean,
I will say, Jerry, do you see? I think it might have been the week you called out their one-dimensional offense. You saw their running back had a huge game against USC. Yeah. You motivated him.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe, look at it this way. Two things might motivate this. Being fifth, I mean, every player knows that. They got to get it. They got to show up and play in Gainesville. That you've got a chance to make a showing now, and you got a big stage. Second thing is, I'd be a little pissed off is why is it Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington, but they just used Florida State's initials? That pissed me off.
That's the motivator. Don't let the players see that.
I mean, we're Florida State.
I'm saying there's any number of things for every individual that motivates somebody, right?
Especially when they put you at fifth, everything should irritate you.
Right. It could be Fresno State
University. Jerry's not worried about where they're ranked. He's worried about how the name is
being misidentified. Come on, man.
We're
being misidentified. Yeah.
I remember when we first started the Osceola back in '82. I had a subscriber that every time we used FSU, I got a hate letter from him. We're Florida State, and so I guess I'm sensitive to that. Although I use it all the time.
Primed up to be the motivational speaker at practice on Friday.
Tomorrow practice.
Get Jerry out there and get him talking to the boys, getting them ready to roll.
Yeah.
Bob's backstage. I wonder if he's getting ready for a Norvell report. Norvell hasn't been on there yet. But.
No, I think he's going to be right before Boo. But they did promote it before the boy. I was hooked on phonics there. They did promote it before the show started. So I think
he's been on the PR warpath. He did. I know All ACC with David Hale and Andrea Adelson yesterday. He's definitely been on the warpath of promotion.
Well, he's good at it. So
he is.
Well, listen, our fans want to say that the eye test doesn't matter. I think Mike knows it does.
Yeah, and I think he understands that they've got some deficiencies in the teams that they've played as far as, Duke didn't have Riley Leonard. Is that going to get magnified? Those kind of things.
You got to build your case.
Right. And listen, he's really good at staying on point. I mean, if he was a politician, I mean, he knows how to stay on message, and he does a good job of that. He's got a little bit of that evangelist going when he gets fired up. So
he's no death row Billy.
No, he's not.
Death Row Billy. Some people are trying to start Hillbilly Willie, but you're going straight to Death Row Billy.
Oh, you've already compared it to Willie Taggart. I'm
not the only one. Again, he is not that level of, but there is. He's not. He's recruiting better than Willie
man. It's the crew cut.
It's the crew cut.
Well, yeah, I think he needs to go ahead and just grow his hair out and be proud that he still has some. He's not like PJ Fleck, who's lost all of his. But that's just me talking. But yeah, listen, I think Jerry's right. Mark's right. We get to have these conversations are great to have, and listen, we kind of get more into the nuance of them in our staff meetings than we do here, just because we have a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions on the staff. So those conversations are fun. And they're going to listen, and there will be a time for us to sit down. And the closer we get to the final poll, the more this nuance will be important, right?
Well, I imagine we got some subscribers out there that like to see us really pissed off, and that there's a conspiracy theory against Florida State and all that. I don't buy into that. I think you earn everything you get in college football, and we need to go out and earn it. And we got our opportunity right in front of us, and make it hard for them not to vote you in.
Yep, and I think that's the challenge the next 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
We're preparing our readers and listeners well. The first comment on the board when I posted the story was expected. We'll be 4 as long as we beat Florida.
There you go.
Correct.
We have educated the fan base, and they're already well educated to begin with.
Well, the truth is the fan base is a lot damn smarter than any of us. So.
Well, that's what I was trying to work my way back to. Certainly in my case.
Especially the younger ones. They scored 12 and 1,400 to get into this university. All we had to do was breathe.
All I had to do is fog the mirror.
I am very thankful that Florida State allowed me to come to college there.
That's right.
I am really thankful of that, because I'm not sure. Probably would have been somewhere in a foreign island somewhere with a online classes before there were online classes. If it had not been for Florida State. But yeah, listen, it's gonna be a fun weekend, guys. Rivalry weekend. Hey, Mark, are you going to the game?
No, I'm not.
Okay, you're watching it from the friendly confines of Palm Harbor.
No, I'm gonna go back on Friday to Nashville. I had an opportunity to go to Gainesville. I can't sit in the stands in Gainesville. I just can't. I'll get in a fight.
We'll get your press pass.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just get hives, man, going in that place.
Well, hey, we hope you come for our post game first impressions. We want you to bring all that feistiness and energy that comes with playing Florida.
Oh man,
you gonna be ready to go Saturday night?
I'm gonna be locked in a room for sure.
I mean, we gave you
Julia put me upstairs and keep everybody else downstairs, and
in the safe room.
We gave you Alabama off to save your energy for the Florida game. You should be fresh and ready to go, like Caitlin DeLoach.
You're right, exactly.
Well, he'll play an important role in this game if that quarterback does have good wheels, because Caitlin's played that pretty good, I think, don't you all?
I do.
Yeah, he's a key part of it.
I think the improvement at linebacker has been one of the keys to this season for Florida State, because I don't think we saw DJ Lundy having the kind of season he's had. Kalen's finally played up to what we thought he could be, and Tatum's just who Tatum is. He's solid. And listen, they've stayed healthy at linebacker, and that's been crucial too.
Yeah, for sure.
They frankly, I mean, it feels almost like, unfortunately, like the Jordan Travis injury is like paying penance, because they've had some guys miss time, but they haven't really had any notable guy be knocked out for the year. And that's really the first one who was going to contribute pretty majorly who did. So it's the unfortunate how the injury gods can strike.
I don't think that's how that works, Curt.
I don't actually think that's how it works, but they have been lucky. And now that is quite unlucky.
Well, football is a fickle mistress, and when she strikes hard. But listen, I think we've probably got a lot of people that are going to want to go away to watch Mike speak. I think we're going to want to go hear what Mike has to say. So we'll take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining us tonight. If you're not a Florida State Osceola subscriber, please go to floridastate.rivals.com or theosceola.com and check us out. If you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, which you're watching right now, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit notifications and get all notifications, and you'll get alerts when we get ready to go live or posted post-practice video, those kind of things. So please check us out at floridastate.rivals.com or theosceola.com. We've got Takeaway Tuesday, practice reports from Tuesday. Curt and Bob and Jerry will be back at practice tomorrow. I'm going to try to join them if I can get enough of my Florida study done tonight. But we'll have our scouting report coming out, keys to a win. Curt, anything else they need to be aware about at the Osceola? Jerry's got
practice reports from this morning.
Yeah, Jerry's got a great article on what it's, the challenges of losing the face of your program, obviously related to Jordan. So please check us out at theosceola.com. And Mark Salva, I'm going to let you sign us out as always.
Go Noles, scalp them, gig them damn Gators.